Hello, Matt Davis here again, working on a couple of questions from the Chapter 3 review quiz. So let's have a look at it. Assume that data organized in the table below represents population data, and they give us classes and frequencies, a sum of the x squareds, and they want us to calculate the population mean for the data set. And if we look down a little lower, there's another problem that wants us to calculate the population standard deviation. So they're kind of telling us multiple times here. We have population data, so calculate the population mean, so calculate the population standard deviation. So what does that mean? That means that we're after mu for the mean and sigma for the population standard deviation. And I assume we're probably going to round those. If it turns out we get exact numbers, we can always change those approximately equals. And then how are we going to go about doing that? Well, we want to use the calculator to its full potential. So what you want to do is put your x values into list 1 and your frequencies into list 2. So we're going to put our frequencies right here into list 2. But what about our x values? Well, our x values come from midpoints of the classes. So what is the midpoint of 0 through less than 10? That would be 5. For 10 through less than 20, that'd be 15. Just averaging the two or thinking about what's in the right in the middle. You can go to your calculator and do 20 plus 30 and divide it by 2. When the numbers are nice, I tend to just think about what's in the middle. So 30 to 40, 35, and 40 to 50 will be 45. And then I'm actually going to get rid of this last row because I want to give help, not answers. So if I get rid of those 14 values, then instead of 63 items, we'll have 49. So we'll just keep that in mind as we go through. So these answers aren't going to match yours on the quiz, but this should still be good help as we go through it. All right, so those midpoints right there, we're going to put those into list 1. So that's going to be list 1. Frequencies are going to go into list 2. And then despite the fact that we have 2 columns, we only have 1 variable here. Frequency does not count as a variable, so when we're done, we're going to do 1 variable statistics. And we're going to put L1, comma L2, which seems weird when you do 1 variable, but that variable is L1 with a frequency of L2. So when you do 1 variable statistics and give it 2 columns, the calculator knows that the second column is going to be frequency. So you do have to make sure you do it in that order where the second one is the frequency. So we switch over to the calculator. Go ahead and clear out anything that's in there. So we go to stat and edit, and got some old data in here, so I will clear that out and type in the new stuff. So in L1, I'm going to put my midpoints, so 5, 15, 25, 35, 45. Again, leaving off the last row. For my example, you feel free to put the last row in here if you want. And then 1, 0, 5, 18, and 25 for the frequencies. Sometimes people ask, do you need to put a 0 in for that 0 frequency? Actually, yes and no. If you put the 15 for the midpoint, you have to tell the calculator that occurred 0 times. If you have something that occurred 0 times, you could just leave that whole row out. So you could leave out the 15 and the 0. I find it easier just to put it all in. But you have to make sure that if you put the 15, you put the 0 with it. You can't put the 15 and then skip the 0 because then all the other frequencies get aligned to the wrong numbers. All right, once you've got those put in, we want to do the calculations like I mentioned on the previous page. So stat, and go over to the center column of calc. Oops, sorry about that. Calc, and then 1 variable statistics. Again, frequency is not a variable. So we do 1 variable statistics, second L1 to tell it where the variable is, and second L2 to tell it that there's frequencies with that variable. Believe the directions on the mean set to round to 2 decimal places. So there's no mu in this list. We're going to use x bar, and the formula for the mean of a sample and the formula for the mean of a population are the same. So even though they're kind of pretending this is sample data, we know better that it's population data. So we'll use their 38.47, but we'll call it mu instead of x bar. And I said 47 even though it says 46 because the 6 is followed by a 9. So we have mu is approximately 38.47 when we round that. And then sigma, we go to the sigma x line. They said 5 significant figures, so starting with the 8, 8, 2, 1, 9, and then a 1. But that 1 is followed by a 9, so we're going to go with 8.2192. So let's go back and write those down. So for mu with 2 decimal places, we decided on 38.47. And for sigma with 5 significant figures, we went with 8.2192. So calculate our population mean, 38.47. Calculate our population standard deviation with 5 significant figures, 8.2192. I think the most common problem people have is maybe getting stuck on what to use for their X values when they're classes, so you have to use midpoints. And then the other problem that people have is when they know they have data in 2 columns, they want to do 2 variable statistics, but it really is 1 variable stats. And then make sure you list those frequencies in your second column. And make sure you check the sum of the x squared. I didn't check it on this one because I had removed the last row, so it wasn't going to match anyway. But use that sum of the x squared right there as a check on your data entry. That can really tell you if you did something wrong on the 1 variable stats L1, L2. If you did, it won't match up. You can also check the value of n and see if that matches. So I have a 49 for my n after I remove the last row. And if we check the n here, we have n equals 49. So you can check that as well. That's also a way to catch mistakes. All right, so there's your population mean and population standard deviation using the full abilities of the calculator on a grouped data table where we had to use midpoints for our x values. I hope that's helpful and get you unstuck. Good luck as you go back to the quiz.